Hello and welcome back to the Game Room. You know what I love? Video games. You know what I love talking about? Games. And it seems like a lot of people these days who cover games seem to hate them. Or at least the people who play them. Well, that's not me, and that's not the 2,116 of you beautiful people checking out this video here today. So for this week, I decided let's go ahead, since there seems to be tons of people talking about digital games and physical games going away. So let's stymie that and talk about some more games that didn't have physical releases when the game first came out that now do, because I got some more games to talk about. So if that sounds interesting to you, let's check it out.
There's a lot of games out there, some of which you've never even heard of. That's where I come in. My name's Luke. I've been playing games since the age of 2, and I have no life.
This is my game room.
Alright, last time we did this video, we didn't have a ton of Switch releases. Well, this time, it's pretty much nothing but Switch releases, as a lot of games that I've been interested in have gotten physical releases on the Switch. So let's start off with one that I saw mentioned in my comments section last time, which I wholeheartedly agreed with. In fact, this was another game that I double dipped on. So I was a huge fan of this series back when it came out. It was a great pseudo 2-player game. I bought the first 4 entries, and then once the new system came out, there wasn't really a release for it. Then they came up with their next new system, and I bought that. And then I just kind of got over the series, much like the systems themselves stopped being released. But they brought the series back to form with Sonic Mania. Sonic Mania is everything I've wanted from a Sonic release since I was a kid. This basically is Sonic 4. So, because I played Sonic 1, Sonic 2, Sonic and Knuckles, which came out before Sonic 3, and then Sonic 3. And by then, the formula got tired. I wasn't really enjoying it that much. Knuckles was cool and all, but they really, much like Sega tends to do, they get too big and above their skis, big for their britches. I played Sonic Adventure and I enjoyed it for a time. Then I stopped playing it. So seeing them come out with a return to form, basically this game is Sonic 4. And it was only coming out as a digital only release. Now they did have a physical release, but it didn't have the game. If I recall, it was a giant statue of Sonic and a little mini Genesis. And I almost bought it until I realized it wasn't the game. But luckily, they did do a physical release later that year. By then, I'd already bought it. But it's one of those things where I do not mind double dipping on something that I really do believe in and would want more of. And wouldn't you know it, Sega hasn't done a follow-up to Sonic Mania since, not as far as I know. They made that weird open world game, a couple other various Sonic games, but Sega's gonna Sega, so hey, maybe we'll get another Sonic Mania one of these days. But yeah, phenomenal game, really brought the series back to form. Kind of a greatest hits of some of the old levels, some remixes of some popular themes like Chemical Plant, and then introduced some new areas which were really just, it fits in so well into the old games, but it makes it even more enjoyable to play, in my opinion. Now, another one that I really enjoyed, I can't remember where I played this. I want to say this might have been a game I played on somebody's phone or something. I just don't remember. Maybe it was an Xbox download or something like that, but it was a game I heard of. It was made by the Team Meat guys. I think this one was just Ed McMillan, and that was Binding of Isaac. And this is the Binding of Isaac plus Afterbirth. So this is one of the first releases for the Switch. It was cool because it actually came with a manual, which is always nice when you get something in the case these days. And it's just a sort of a top-down adventure type game, but it's roguelite. So in it, every playthrough is different. You get different power-ups as you're going through it, and you can eventually get down to the depths of hell. And like, it's really, that story is very awful if you've looked into it. This was a game that my buddy Sean introduced me to, and I really enjoyed. I wish I could remember what I first played it on, because I know it wasn't the Switch. When I played it on the Switch, it never played as well as what I originally played it on. And I'm pretty sure it wasn't the PC, but maybe it was. I don't know. Let me know, where did this game come out? I can't remember. Maybe it was an Xbox 360 game. But whenever I played it on the Switch, it just didn't quite feel right. So I was never able to really get as far into it on the Switch as I was when I played it wherever the hell it was before. But a super fun game, really cool. Like, the amount of synergies you can get in this game are insane. I've seen various, like, I got pretty far into it. I never completely beat the bottom depths of hell. And, you know, as most of these roguelike games go, you can keep throwing your head at the wall, and then you finally get a golden run where you get farther than you've ever done before, and then, you know, kind of back to the beginning. But still, I enjoy that gameplay loop. For me, that is the closest experience to an arcade game that doesn't get boring, in my opinion, because this is when I think of an arcade game, it's usually score attacks, or you play it for a session and put it down, and that's what these roguelike games are like, is you can play one session, 2 sessions, play for 30 minutes to an hour, put it down, but you actually feel like you're progressing. And in arcade games, I don't get my jollies by getting a high score. But yeah, Binding of Isaac plus Afterbirth, Rebirth, whatever. They've had so many subtitles, but still, solid game. They got a physical release. All right, here's another one. So this isn't the actual game, but this did get a physical release, and it's funny, it took a while for it to get a physical release, and that is Minecraft. Not Minecraft Dungeons. I actually don't have a physical copy of Minecraft. The one that I really think back to is not the OG version of Minecraft or the new versions. It's surprisingly the one that released on the Xbox 360 back when it was only on PC. And I know that one got updates over the years, and they added the hunger system and the end and the Enderman and all that. But just a fun game. I mean, if you've played Minecraft, there's a reason why it took the world by storm. It is such a simple concept, and yet it is so endlessly replayable, as well as it has that fun of discovery that just keeps you coming back for more. Every playthrough is different. Every world is different. Every biome is different. And then, I mean, yeah, it's different, but you're doing the same stuff, so it can get boring. I don't know how some people just play it endlessly, making their Rube Goldberg machines and doing all this, but it's a fun time, and a game that desperately needed a physical release. And I think they didn't get it for like 3-4 years until after it had been out. Now, another one that was a phenomenally fun game that I heard about, and I didn't pick it up. It is a sports game, a golf game, but it actually was a golf game RPG, which apparently this was a thing done a lot back in the late 80s, early 90s, where they would take a sports game and then have RPG elements, like Super Tennis, or there's a racing game like that. I think Final Lap Twins like that on the TurboGrafx. But Golf Story for the Switch really combined some of those fun pick-up-and-play cell phone games like Crazy Golf, and stripped away some of the more simulation elements that you get in a lot of golf games nowadays. And it's just a really cool story, a really fun adventure, super zany levels you get to. There's one that's like a horror-themed golf course, and I think there's Old West and all this, and just you can do these ridiculous abilities that allow you to skip your ball across the water, and the story-wise is actually pretty interesting. And yes, RPG elements, so you do eventually like level up and do things of that nature. There's not much combat that I recall, but it's just a very solid golf game with a little bit of flavor on the outside. I've never gone back and played it since, but it was one that I actually waited to get the physical release. So that'll happen sometimes, is I wanted to get a game, but most games I'm not going to buy day one if they're digital only. But then if I find out it has a physical release, all right, I'll be like, okay, I'll hold off for that. And I think Limited Run did that version. Super fun. Really enjoyed it. Now, a game that I did want to play day one, and I was following this game back when the Xbox One was announced. So one of the reasons why I picked up an Xbox One was for Titanfall, but there was an indie game that was announced that sounded super interesting. You were just a lone figure on an island, and you would explore. It was a roguelike game, but at this point, there wasn't such a proliferation of roguelike games. Like Hollow Knight wasn't out. I barely just played Rogue Legacy. Things like Hades, all that wasn't out, but there was a game called Below. So ironically, this is on the PS4, and I got the physical release of this, but I actually covered and played this game, I want to say back in 2019 or 2020. And this was after I discovered that Below had been released when it was in development hell. Like, this was a game that I was following back in 2013, and I think it finally came out in either 2018 or 2019. And it just came out. There wasn't much fanfare. There was a time there where it looked like it had been canceled, but they picked it up, finally released it, and it's a very atmospheric game. You land on an island. There's not much subtext. There's not much information. And you just continue to explore the island, gradually going lower and lower into the depths until you finally start uncovering that there's more to this island than meets the eye. Eventually, you can unlock the heart of the island, which then gets you all this other flavor text where you can swim to safety, or you can do all these other things. Like, it's been a while since I've played it, but basically your lantern is your safety area, and as long as you are in the light, you can't be attacked. But there's just, it's an intense game. There's a lot of traps that can kill you. If you die, you go back, you lose all your progress. You can get back to your body and get some of your stuff back. The Dark Souls meta. But more often than not, you're gonna die. And it's one of those things where I really enjoyed my time playing it, but nobody talks about this game. And I did not imagine this game would ever get a physical release, because it was one of those things where it was one of those indie games that was very hot back in 2013, and then it missed its opportunity to be very successful. If this game had come out on its normal time frame in, say, 2014, 2015, I think this game would have been huge. But by the time it finally came out, we had already had Dead Cells, we had already had Hollow Knight, all these other games that really kind of did what it was trying to do, but in a flashier bit, like Axiom, all these other indie darlings came out and kind of overshadowed this game. But I have a feeling over the years, especially now as the more I reflect on it, I really did enjoy my time playing it. It was a solid game, and one that I didn't know got a physical release. So I just so happened to search for below physical edition, and what do you know, there's a physical PS4 edition, and I think you can still buy it new for $20-$30. So definitely, if that sounds interesting to you guys, pick it up, give it a shot. I really enjoyed my time playing it. Don't expect a phenomenal experience, but it is going to be something that you don't play every day, and it is hard. It is hard, so you'll be prepared to die a lot, because that will happen. Okay, now here's one that I never thought would get a physical edition, never thought would get a translation, and it used to be colloquially known as Secret of Mana 2 or Seiken Densetsu 3, and it got a rename as Trials of Mana. So Trials of Mana was the sequel to Secret of Mana on the SNES. This game came out in Japan, I want to say in 95, 96, but because it had so much dialogue, there was 6 different characters. You would choose 3 at the beginning, and then depending on which one of those characters was your leader, you had an opportunity to have an ending. Each one of them would have a different main villain, and then the other 2 main villains would get dispatched of late in the game. But there's also interactions between the 3 party members. So just the sheer amount of dialogue, the sheer amount of translating it would have required, and the fact that we probably wouldn't have gotten the game till 96 or 97, and by that point the PS1 was already in full fling, the N64. I'm guilty of it. I was alive back then, and I definitely was not really interested in anything that wasn't 3D polygons for some stupid reason. I mean, luckily I bought Mario RPG after I had nothing to play on the N64, but I actually regretted it when I did it, because I was a boneheaded kid. But kept it, played it later, and loved it. But anyways, Trials of Mana, phenomenal game. Finally got a physical release, got a actual translation, and then they did a remake of it, which I have the remake too, but I've yet to play. Just like I haven't played this either. I played this game. This was one of the first games I covered on the channel back in 2015. If you're interested, check it out. It is a very fun game. If you like Secret of Mana 2 or Trials of Mana, I think is a better game. It doesn't have the 3-player simultaneous play like Secret of Mana has, but it has a more kind of a more developed combat system that doesn't require you to spend a minute holding down the button to then unleash an attack. It kind of builds up a bank of power that the longer you hold it, the more specials you can use until you can unleash it all at once. It still has the ring menu, so if you're playing it with a second player, it does have that drawback, but it's just gorgeous sprite work, gorgeous artwork, very good score. Not as good as Secret of Mana, not as legendary as that music goes, but still, if you're thinking of playing Trials of Mana, I would recommend playing this over the remake. just because I'm not a huge fan of that art style. And from the people I've heard who've played it, they say it's good, but I would go with the original. All right, and then one that I was so stoked to finally pick up. I waited to get this one, and then I couldn't wait any longer, so I did purchase it digitally. When it finally came out, this was something that Jen and I actually played a lot, and that is hard for me to do. It's hard for me to find a game that Jen really enjoys, but there was just something about Streets of Rage 4 that clicked with her, and she probably liked this game more than I did. I would hazard a guess and say this is probably one of her favorite games of all time. She really, really liked it. We were actually dabbling with the idea of having her review the game on this channel, but never really came to fruition. Could still do it someday. It was just a really fun beat 'em up. Pays homage to the originals. I've played Streets of Rage 1, 2, and 3. 3 I never owned, but I played it a lot back on the Sega channel, and I do remember when I played it, I thought the series kind of got tired. Nothing came of it for years, and then finally they released a trailer. I was a little on the fence about the art style at first, but actually getting into the game and playing it, I love the art style. I think it is phenomenal. They have a really great combat system where you can use your special attacks, and then you have an opportunity to get your health back that you lose by using that special attack. And there's similar things in the game where you get hit by poison, or you'll get hit by things where you essentially, it's like the Bloodborne system where you lose your health, but then you have a certain amount of time to regain that health back, unless you get hit again, and then the health is gone permanently. And I think that I know other beat 'em ups are using it. Like people in the homebrew scene have started to use this mechanic because it's a brilliant. It's kind of the evolution of what the beat 'em up does. Because I don't know about you guys, but when I play a beat 'em up, one of the worst things I can do is feel like I can't use an ability because it's just gonna kill me. But if I'm gonna use an ability and then I can risk it and get that health back, well, that's a game changer. And we went through Streets of Rage 4. We beat it on easy mode, normal mode, hard mode, and we were working on very hard mode. And then I think she got pregnant. And then we stopped playing it. But still, one of the most fun experiences I had on the Switch of this last generation. Super fun game. If you've been on the fence about checking out Streets of Rage 4, stop. Pick it up. It is a phenomenal game. One of the best beat 'em ups ever made. All right, now one that is ironically on a system that I find it hard to believe that I have this game on this system, but there it is. And it was another indie darling that came out, I want to say 2012, 2013, 2014, somewhere around there. And it didn't have a physical release for the longest time until they announced it, and they announced it on the Wii U of all places, and that is Shovel Knight. And not only do I have Shovel Knight on the Wii U, I also have the amiibo up there somewhere. And the fun thing about the amiibo for Shovel Knight is it actually allows you to use it without opening the package. They didn't put a little shield like the other Nintendo ones do. But Shovel Knight! So I haven't played the DLCs on this, like the one where you're playing as Plague Knight or King Knight or anything, but the actual game of Shovel Knight, which is best described as a combination between DuckTales and Mega Man. I can agree, it definitely is like that, and it's just a really solid, fun game, very, very well put together. When I played through it, I want to say I played through this in 2018 when I did a bunch of my backlog games, and this was one of the best ones I played during that whole time. It really has that 2D sensibilities, and Yacht Club Games just knocked it out of the park. A bit surprising that Yacht Club hasn't really done anything else. They really put all their focus on Shovel Knight and then the different DLCs, which I think they did a disservice to themselves by not releasing those as separate games. But if I recall, they released almost all of those as free DLCs. So you gotta respect what they're doing. This was really their baby, and they made a great character with it. But you gotta, I mean, come on, it's 2024. We gotta do something else with them, or you gotta make something else now. I mean, I could be wrong. I haven't looked into it. But game-wise, it's Mega Man, where you're going through, you have the different masters of the different zones. You can jump on your shovel like a pogo, as you do in DuckTales. And has a lot of secrets, a lot of different ways of going through it, and is a really, really fun time. And one of those, if you grew up in the 80s and 90s and you haven't played Shovel Knight, it's another one that I think you will really enjoy. Now, one that I was not too sure of, I really was on the fence about picking it up, and I kept seeing people talk about it. It has that Earthbound vibe, and I don't know about you guys, but I like Earthbound, but Earthbound fans are a little cultish, sometimes. Like, they remind me of the blue cult from Earthbound itself. Because if you say anything wrong about Earthbound, you can see the eyes gloss over, or it's a little too niche for its own good. And when I saw people talking about Eastward, I kind of got the same vibes. And this one, I believe, was only available through Play Asia, maybe? I think that's where I got this. And I finally broke down and I picked it up. I know my buddy Super Derek had done a video where he picked up a bunch of RPGs for the Switch, and that was one of them. And when he did that, I'm like, oh man, they got Super Derek. Damn, I should probably get it. I should probably get it if he got it. He's got good taste. But I don't know much about the game. I know it is a RPG. I know it is very Earthbound-like. You know, it reminded me a little bit of kind of one of those Lisa-type games where it's got a crowd following it, but I took a shot on it. I don't know. I can't really talk much about what it's about or anything on it, so let me know in the comments if it's something you recommend. If that's one I should definitely add to my backlog once I finish the current backlog I'm still in the middle of. All right, now one that I was very excited about. I don't know why I was so excited about this. It's basically just, you know, a walking like simulation game or just something really stupid. But I saw AVGN cover this back in the day. I don't have a 3DO, but when Limited Run Games announced they were doing a physical release of Plumbers Don't Wear Ties on the Switch, I had to get it. I had to get it just for the guy wearing the tie and strumming his frickin' plunger. Yeah, it's basically like watching softcore, you know, on a game. At least that's what I've heard. But this was one that I know that Jen and I really enjoyed, Night Trap. So I figured, why not get the physical edition of... And I get it. There is a physical edition of Plumbers Don't Wear Ties. This one's kind of a cheat. But I'm talking about... whatever. I wanted to mention it here. I'm never really going to talk about Plumbers Don't Wear Ties. And it was just one of those things where, even though it's on the 3DO, that basically is a system no one's going to play anyways. So now we have a way where most of us with normal systems can play it. And yeah, that's just funny. Okay, one of the games that really started off everyone with game preservation being a thing and how we need to be careful with these digital-only games was another beat-em-up that I think came out in 2008, around the same time the movie did, and it was very beloved, but it flew under the radar until it was delisted. And when it was delisted, the systems that had this game suddenly became collectible. Everyone was talking about it. People bemoaned not picking it up, and that was Scott Pilgrim versus the World. Yeah, Scott Pilgrim versus the World, the game, and this is called the Complete Edition. I think when they re-released it, they added some new stuff. But yes, this was a huge pickup when I believe Limited Run did it, because people were talking about this game for years. It was synonymous with like why you need physical media is because you can't get Scott Pilgrim, you can't get PT. Like those were the two that you would hear to death. You can't get the Simpsons arcade game, or you can't, like, all these ones that would, which ironically I have the Simpsons arcade game. I downloaded it on my Xbox 360, and it's funny when I found out later that that was the only way, or that people, you know, that one was delisted, because the whole concept of a game getting delisted seemed pretty foreign. It's like, what do you mean? You know, I'd been using Steam since the 90s. Every time I got into a new computer and I put in my Steam library, there it was. What do you mean the games get delisted? But anyways, Scott Pilgrim versus the World, another very fun beat 'em up. It kind of lost a little bit of its luster in my opinion because it came out so soon after Streets of Rage 4 that had Streets of Rage 4 not come out, this game I think would have got a bigger bump. And then of course Shredder's Revenge was announced, so it kind of got put in its place in my opinion, but still a fun game, solid. I'm very happy that for the people that are huge fans of it that we got a physical release. Obviously, I got one as well, and it's just one of those things where you know, being a physical collector, you need to jump onto this kind of stuff because I'm sure it'll be delisted again because I think they did do a new digital release, which will probably get delisted just shortly. All right, now this was one that, man, when they announced this game at the sizzle reel for the Switch, I think in February of 2018, piqued my interest immediately. It's a game that has an 8-bit art style and then a 16-bit art style, and you can switch between the two of them. Yes, please. That sounds phenomenal. What a concept. Like, this is what I'm looking for in my game design. Not the stupid first-person shooter this, first-person shooter that, but an actual real thing where it's kind of like the way I felt about Super Paper Mario, where you could go from 2D to 3D. Well, this game is called The Messenger, and it came out, there was no rumblings of a physical edition, and then it got 2 physical editions. I got the first one, which was from Super Rare Games, and then I believe Limited Run Games did another one, which is funny. I've never noticed that my copy has a number on it, 6,833 of 8,500. I'm pretty sure I ordered this pretty early on. I think I'd have a lower number. But yeah, Limited Run Games did a version 2, which I think that one's more expensive than the one I have, but who cares? This is made by the same people who did the game Sea of Stars, which I kickstarted, and I stupidly did not push for the physical edition on that one, and I'm kicking myself because I'm sure I'll regret not picking up a physical edition of it, which I'm sure are sold out now. I probably should get on that. I did enjoy Sea of Stars, but The Messenger, phenomenal game. Takes some inspiration from Ninja Gaiden, and then you get to stage 10, and then you realize, oh my goodness, the whole game opens up and then becomes a Metroidvania, which is and then you can go from 16-bit to 8-bit. It's a phenomenal concept. It's so well executed. In some regards, I think what they did in The Messenger is so much more impressive than what they did in Sea of Stars. Because imagine going through an action platformer and then suddenly halfway through the game, you can revisit those action platforming levels. But now there's new secrets. There's pathways that lead to new zones. You can go through it in an 8-bit aesthetic or a 16-bit aesthetic. And the way you control your character really takes some notes from Ori and the Blind Forest. As much as I love the navigation in Ori and the Blind Forest, I feel like The Messenger gets it even better. And it's really one of my favorite games of the last decade easily. And when it came out with a physical edition, I couldn't jump on that soon enough. Hence why I got it from Super Rare Games or whoever it was. Because I usually only went into Limited Run. That was the first time I bought anyone from someone that wasn't Limited Run. Okay, now this was a game based on the movie for the Dark Universe that, man, I think I was convinced to pick this up either from a Metal Jesus video or a Radical Reggie, someone like that who talked about it when it was digital only. And they said, this is actually a really fun, decent game. And then it got a physical release with Limited Run. I didn't pick it up, but I want to say I saw it at Best Buy, either on their website, most likely on their website because I don't leave the house. And I decided, you know what, I will pick it up. And that was the Mummy Demastered. And this is surprisingly a really fun, solid, bite-sized Metroidvania game. It's about 6 hours. You play as a generic army dude, and then you're fighting off the mummy. I mean, it's as far as the movie goes, I didn't see the movie. It did not interest me that much. And I don't know how much the game follows the plot of the movie, but because the game is good and I've heard the movie is terrible, I'm imagining it doesn't really. But it's just a solid, well-crafted game and really, really fun. And at the time when I played it, it was one of those things where it's a nice short game. Short enough, but still worth, the investment of the time in it. Desirable weapons, fun boss encounters, not too cumbersome to get through, and just all in all, a really fun experience and one I would highly recommend checking out, especially because it's probably one of the better licensed movie games we've gotten in the last 15, 20 years, because the movie licensed games kind of died out, like the N64 era and whatnot. All right, last couple ones we're getting down to. So a game that I first played on my iPad. So I played it on my iPad. It's actually the first of a trilogy, and I really enjoyed playing this game. It's a turn-based tactical game, but it has a much different system than any other turn-based tactical system you'll find. And it also has a little bit of elements of choose your own adventure, where you can make a decision and then suddenly someone falls off a hill and then you lose one of your best units. Or you can make a decision and then some guy just gets his arm ripped off, or it's brutal. Definitely influenced by Game of Thrones as far as the consequences that could happen. And that was the Banner Saga. And this is the Banner Saga Trilogy. So I actually covered all 3 of these games back in 2020. But I only played the first game when I first tried out the series. And then I picked up this and played Game 2 and Game 3. To be honest, the first game is probably by far the best. The second game is good, and then the third game, the storyline starts coming off its hinges, in my opinion. It's still worth checking out, but by all means, play the first game to see what it's about. What happens is you have strength, which is relegated to your red, and then you have armor, which is relegated to your blue. And you'll find that as you remove people's armor, it also removes their strength. So you'll find, so it's kind of one of those things where it's not like a lot of like a lot of tactical games where you can tank a lot of people with an overpowered unit. If someone's getting attacked over and over again, they're going to lose their blue, and then they're not going to be able to do any damage themselves. So you have to really think carefully about how you're structuring your units in the battlefield. There is a magic system, which is pretty cool, and it's a unique art style that really has aged pretty well, especially coming from an iOS game. Like, this was a cell phone game that they then put onto consoles, and is very, very solid. I did a full review of all three of them. Check that out if you want to know some more of my thoughts on it. But really a very, very solid game. Solid trilogy. All three of them are fun. And if you like tactical games, definitely one that you should check out. All right, now here's one that it's funny. You see these creators put out games, but usually they're kind of cash grabs or this afterthoughts. But knowing James Rolfe, he got a game that actually is worth its salt, at least the first one in my opinion. And so he released the Angry Video Game Nerd game 1 and 2. And what's funny is if you're a fan of the show, there's a lot of in-jokes to episodes in the game. And I really enjoyed the first one. I tried playing the second one, and I didn't enjoy it so much. But also, like I say, I'm not a big PC game fan. When I played the first one, I actually streamed the whole thing and had a great time. I had people watching me in the chat as I ran my head against the wall on the last boss for far too long. But when I tried the second one, it's level-based, almost in a Super Mario World way, where you go from level to level, and there's something about it didn't click as much. I don't know why. Maybe I wasn't in the right mood. Like I said, I don't enjoy playing games on my computer. So I got this as a gift from Jen. I think she bought it for me for Christmas maybe a year or two ago. And I've yet to open it up and play it because I've already beaten the first one and I gave up on the second one. But still, having a physical release of it, super cool. Love having a physical release and would like to check it out one of these days. And then last game we're going to talk about, just because I've mentioned it before, so we'll keep it brief. This was a game that came out in, I want to say 2011 or 2012. It did get a physical release with IndieBox, but I missed it. And then after that, kind of radio silence. For years I looked and wanted to see if it would get a physical release. Never did on any of the other consoles until finally I found out about it after the fact, and that was Rogue Legacy on the Switch. By this point, I believe Rogue Legacy 2 had already been announced, which I haven't played to this day. But I've talked about Rogue Legacy before. One of my favorite roguelites. That's the one where you have the different ancestors, the castle changes between different playthroughs. And I just, it's funny, I bought this one off Best Buy too, and when it showed up, it had damage on it. They damaged the dang thing. So I actually replaced the case, but you can still see some of the remnants on the actual paper itself. But one that I'm glad to have has a manual. I love it when these games have manuals because the Switch case has placeholders for manuals. So always be on the lookout for a game if it has a manual. But really fun. One that I wanted to get a physical release and finally did. And man, am I glad to have it in the collection. And there you go. There is a bunch of games that we're talking about. Now, I didn't mention Baldur's Gate 3 because the physical release hasn't come out yet, and ironically, after I mentioned it 2 weeks ago, I got an email saying, oh, it's coming, guys, it's coming. It'll be here by April or May or something. So, once I finally get that, maybe we'll do a part 3, and I'll talk about some of the other games I haven't mentioned yet. This kind of blew the rest of them out. Like I said, a lot of games on the Switch, because you get a lot of physical releases on the Switch. But yes, that's what you get for this week, guys. Let me know about some more games you guys were interested in that had physical releases after they were digital only, and you were super stoked to get them, because these are definitely ones that mean a lot to me in a lot of ways. Having a physical copy of The Messenger, physical copy of Shovel Knight, Sonic Mania, I care a whole hell of a lot more about that than having a physical copy of Horizon Forbidden West and things of that nature, especially as the years go on. But yes, that's what we got for this week. As a reminder, I release a new video every Tuesday. I do have channel memberships now. There's a Patreon if you want to support the channel more. And let's just keep going, guys. Let's see how fast we can get to 3,000. We've already made it up to 2,100. Let's see how far we can go. I can't believe it. Thank you all so much for the comments, the likes, the shares. Like I said, I read every comment you guys put down, and when I finally realize the algorithm doesn't punish me for responding to all your comments, I'll get back to doing that. But anyways, just so you know, I really appreciate the support. Thank you all for being here. It means the world to me. And hey, it's been so nice getting a hold of you. Take care.